December 24th, 1976, Attica Correctional Facility. 2:00 p.m. Frank Lucas sat in the visiting room waiting for his family. Christmas Eve. The prison had allowed extended visiting hours. Frank had been locked up for 18 months. Felt like 18 years. The door opened. His wife Julie walked in with their 3 kids. Frankie Jr., 10 years old. Ruby, 8. Ray, 6. They all looked so different. Taller, older, growing up without him. Frankie Jr. ran to the plexiglass barrier, put his hands against it. "Daddy!" Frank put his hands on the other side, trying to touch through the glass, trying to hug his son through a barrier designed to keep them apart. "Hey, champ, you getting big. I miss you, Daddy. When are you coming home?" That question. The question Frank heard every visit. The question he didn't have a good answer for. "Soon, son, soon." But then Frankie Jr. asked a different question, a harder question. The question every child of a prisoner eventually asks. "Daddy, are you a bad man?" The visiting room seemed to go silent. Julie's eyes filled with tears. Frank felt like someone had punched him in the chest. He could lie, tell his son he was innocent, that the government made a mistake, that Daddy was actually a hero, or he could tell the truth and break his son's heart. Frank Lucas made a choice in that moment, the most important choice of his life. To understand what happened in that visiting room, you need to understand what the previous 18 months had been like for Frank. When Frank was arrested in January 1975, he lost everything instantly. The mansion was seized. The cars were impounded. Bank accounts frozen. Everything he'd built gone. But the worst part wasn't losing the money. It was watching his family suffer. Julie had to move into a small apartment in New Jersey. She worked 2 jobs, waitress during the day, cleaning offices at night, to support the kids. The kids went from private school to public school, from having everything to having almost nothing. Their classmates knew who their father was, knew what he'd done. The bullying was relentless. "Your dad's a drug dealer. Your dad kills people. Your dad's going to die in prison." Got in fights defending his father. Got suspended 3 times in 1st grade. Was angry, confused, and didn't understand why his life had changed so dramatically. Julie brought the kids to visit every month. 3-hour drive from New Jersey to Attica. She'd dress them up, make it feel special, try to pretend this was normal. But it wasn't normal. And 10-year-old Frankie Jr. was starting to realize that. The Christmas visit in 1976 was supposed to be happy. Julie had brought cookies she'd baked. The kids had made cards. There were presents that Frank had arranged to buy through the prison commissary. Small things, but something. They'd been visiting for 40 minutes, talking about school, about Christmas plans, about everything except the obvious. Frank was in prison and wouldn't be home for years. Then Frankie Jr. went quiet. Frank could see him working up courage to ask something. "What is it, son?" "Daddy, some kids at school said you're a bad man. They said you sold drugs that killed people. Is that true?" Julie started to intervene. "Frankie, we talked about this." "No," Frank said. "Let him ask. He deserves an answer." Frank looked at his 10-year-old son through the plexiglass, saw the confusion in his eyes, the hope that maybe the kids at school were wrong, the desperate need to believe his father was a hero. And Frank knew this was the moment that would define their relationship forever. Lie and create a false image that would eventually crumble, or tell the truth and live with the consequences. "Frankie," Frank said slowly, "come sit down. I need to tell you something." Frankie Jr. sat. Julie put her arm around him. The younger kids were playing with toys in the corner, oblivious. Frank took a deep breath. "You asked if I'm a bad man. That's a good question. an important question, and I'm going to answer it honestly. Okay? Okay, Daddy. Yes, Frank said. I did bad things. I sold drugs. Heroin. Do you know what heroin is? Frankie Jr. shook his head. It's a poison. It makes people feel good for a little while, but then it destroys them, makes them sick, makes them forget about their families. Sometimes it kills them. Tears were forming in Frankie Jr.'s eyes. You killed people, not directly. I didn't shoot anyone, but I sold them something that killed them. That's almost the same thing. So yes, son, I'm responsible for people dying. Julie was crying now. This was harder than Frank expected. But Daddy, you're my daddy. You're not bad. You love us. Frank's voice cracked. I do love you, more than anything in the world. But loving you doesn't make the bad things I did go away. I can be a good father and still be a bad man. Those two things can both be true. Frankie Jr. was trying to process this. 10 years old, too young to understand moral complexity, but old enough to know his world was falling apart. So those kids are right. You are bad. Frank leaned closer to the plexiglass. Here's what I want you to understand. I made terrible choices. I hurt a lot of people. I deserve to be in prison. The law is right to punish me, but let me finish. Frank said gently, I did those bad things because I wanted money. I wanted power. I wanted to be somebody. And I told myself it was okay because I was providing for my family. But that was a lie. I was providing for my ego. He pointed to his prison uniform. This is where that got me. And this is where it'll get anyone who makes the same choices I did. Frankie Jr.'s tears were flowing now. I don't want you to be bad. I know, son, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If I could go back and make different choices, I would. But I can't, so now I have to live with what I did, and you have to live with having a father in prison. Frank wiped his own eyes. But here's what I want you to know. Just because I made bad choices doesn't mean you have to. You can be better than me. You can learn from my mistakes instead of repeating them. How? By choosing differently. When you're tempted to take shortcuts, remember where I am. When someone offers you easy money, remember what it cost me. When you think about breaking the rules, remember that I can't hug you right now because I broke too many rules. Frank pressed his hand against the plexiglass again. I love you, Frankie. And because I love you, I'm telling you the truth. I'm a cautionary tale. A warning. Don't be like me. Be better than me. Frankie Jr. put his small hand against his father's. I'm scared, Daddy. Of what? That I'll be bad like you. That it's in my blood. Frank shook his head firmly. No, you're not destined to be like me. You get to choose. Every day, you get to choose what kind of man you want to be. And if you choose right, if you work hard, stay in school, respect your mother, and stay away from drugs and crime, you'll be everything I'm not. Promise? I promise. You're already better than me. You know why? Why? Because you're asking these questions at 10 years old. I was 40 before I started asking them. You're already ahead of me. The guard called out, 5 minutes. Frank only had 5 more minutes with his family. 5 minutes. Before they'd leave, and he wouldn't see them for another month. Frankie, Frank said urgently, listen to me. The world is going to tell you that you're just a drug dealer's son, that you're destined to fail, that you'll end up like me. Don't believe them. How do I not believe them? By proving them wrong. By graduating high school, going to college, getting a real job, building a real life, by being the man I should have been. Frank looked at Julie, then back at his son. Your mother is working 2 jobs to keep you fed and housed. That's because of my mistakes, so you help her. You be the man of the house, until I get out. You take care of your brother and sister. You show the world that you're not defined by your father's crimes. I'll try, Daddy. Don't try. Do it. Promise me. I promise. The guard called again. Time's up. Frank stood. His kids stood. They all put their hands against the plexiglass. One more time, trying to hug through the barrier. "I love you all so much," Frank said. "And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything." Julie was sobbing. "We love you, Frank. We'll be here next month. I know you will. And Julie, thank you for bringing them, for taking care of them, for not giving up on me even though you should." They left. Frank watched them walk out the door, watched his 10-year-old son, the boy who now knew his father was a bad man, disappear into the hallway. Frank sat back down, put his head in his hands, and cried. Really cried. The kind of crying he'd never done before. The kind that comes from finally admitting the truth to the person who matters most. A guard walked over. "You okay, Lucas?" "No," Frank said, "but I will be. I have to be, for my kid." That visit changed Frank Lucas. For the next 7 years in prison, Frank thought about that conversation, about his son's question, about the honest answer he'd given. And slowly, Frank started to change. Not because he'd found religion, not because he'd had some dramatic epiphany, but because he'd told his son the truth, and now he had to live up to it. He got his GED in prison, took college courses, stayed out of trouble, worked in the prison library, became a model prisoner. Not because he was trying to get early release, but because he'd promised his son he'd be better. And Frank Lucas kept that promise. When Frank was released in 1981, Frankie Jr. was 15, a sophomore in high school, straight-A student, star of the basketball team. Everything Frank had told him to be. Frank and his son sat down for another conversation. This time, no plexiglass between them. "You kept your promise," Frank said. "You kept yours too," Frankie Jr. replied. "You told me the truth. You didn't lie to make yourself look good. That mattered, Dad. That helped me." "How?" "Because I knew what I was dealing with. I knew the truth. And when other kids said stuff about you, I could say, 'Yeah, my dad did bad things, but he's honest about it. And he's trying to be better.' That shut them up." Frank nodded. "I'm proud of you, son. You're the man I should have been." "No," Frankie Jr. said. "I'm the man you taught me to be. By showing me what not to do. That's valuable too." Frankie Jr. went on to graduate high school with honors, got a scholarship to college, became a social worker, spent his career helping kids whose parents were in prison. "I do this because of that visit," he said in a 2010 interview. "The Christmas visit when I was 10. When my dad told me the truth instead of lying. That honesty, that brutal, painful honesty saved my life." How? Because I knew the stakes. I knew what happened if I followed his path. And I knew he was counting on me to be different. That's powerful motivation. Frank Lucas died in 2019. His son spoke at the funeral. "My father was a drug dealer. He hurt a lot of people. He deserves every criticism he gets, but he was also the man who told me the truth when I was 10 years old, who didn't sugarcoat his crimes, who didn't make excuses, who said I'm a bad man and you need to be better than me." That honesty, that painful, difficult honesty, is his real legacy. Not the money, not the empire, but the truth, he told his son in a prison visiting room on Christmas Eve, 1976. "I miss him, but I'm grateful for him, because he loved me enough to tell me the truth, and that truth set me free from his mistakes." After the funeral, Frankie Jr. was cleaning out his father's apartment. He found a small box. Inside, a card. It was the Christmas card Frankie Jr. had made in 1976. Crayon drawing of a Christmas tree. Message inside, "Dear Daddy, I love you. Please come home. Love, Frankie Jr." On the back in Frank's handwriting, "The day I told him the truth, the day I promised to be better. Never forget." Frank had kept that card for 43 years, a reminder of the most important conversation of his life. Frankie Jr. keeps it now, framed in his office. next to his social work diploma, a reminder that even deeply flawed parents can teach valuable lessons. That honesty, even painful honesty, is the greatest gift a parent can give. Are you a bad man? The question every parent fears. The question Frank Lucas answered honestly. The question that changed everything. If this story about brutal honesty and redemption moved you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a like if you believe telling the truth, even when it hurts, is the right thing to do. Comment below, would you have told your child the truth, like Frank did? Remember, the greatest gift you can give your children isn't money or success or comfort. It's honesty, even when that honesty breaks your heart.